Okay, so I swear I had one of these when I was younger. It was one of these that had a Ford Focus body shell, yellow, lime green, and then I went on to have one that was a sky blue Ford Mondeo. I cannot remember for my life where that's gone. My dad said that he would never have got rid of it, so maybe it's somewhere. I don't know where it is, but just in case something has happened to it, I have bought, and I'll have to get all the bubble wrap up. Ta-da! Yeah, so this is the latest addition to the fleet. It is a Tamiya TL-01. Now, this definitely is one of two cars I used to race at Froome Radio Control Car Club with, along with the MO3L, which I recently restored, and thank God I never parted way with this. But this I managed to get second-hand on eBay, and at quite a good price for it, because TL-01 seems to be going for quite a high resale value recently. But I managed to snag this for, I think it was £67 with postage included. And I was... hang on, let me just try that one more time. Anyway, as I was saying, I have been in quite the bidding wars to get hold of one of these. On the first listing I watched, I overslept and completely missed the last few minutes. And on the second one, I actually placed a bid, but I was outbidded by £1. So this time round, I wasn't going to take any chances. And yeah, the bid I placed on this was £67, and I thought, okay, surely nobody's going to outbid that. And I chucked it in for good measure. Didn't think that I was actually going to win it, and that somebody was going to outbid me by £1 again. But I won, and managed to get hold of one in the end. So the plan of action with this is to completely strip it down, restore it, a bit like I've done with the MO3L and the TL-01B. One of the things I'm not going to be doing with this is getting new internal components, so the gears will still be the same. However, one of the things that the seller did mention was that the front differentials is not working, so I'll take that apart and have a look. But the diffs at the back are fine, but it's just the ones at the front, as you can see, are not working. So let's take a closer look at this thing. Okay, so let's get a closer look. I have no idea what the tyres and rims are, but they're definitely not the ones that came with the kit, that's for sure. The servo-wise, I believe it's just a standard Acom's plastic nylon gear servo in there. So the plan is to get rid of that and replace it with a metal gear one instead. Nice that the body poles have actually been folded down to make posting a lot easier, otherwise it wouldn't have fitted in that box. And hopefully you didn't see my bare feet just then. And I believe that this is the original kit motor, and it's definitely seen better days by the looks of it. But I just want to hook this up to some power and see if this still works. Okay, so I've got the car turned upside down to stop it from rolling off. Got a standard 7.2 volt nickel metal hydride pack. And let's just see how healthy this thing sounds. Okay, so yeah, there's something definitely going on at the front there. Okay, so it doesn't sound too bad at the back. That sounds pretty good. I don't know what condition this was left in. I don't know what to say. But also, one of the things I've also noticed is, you know how much dirt there is here at the top, but it's surprisingly pretty clean at the bottom. And in fact, there's barely any scratches, and with some muck off on this thing, it's going to look almost brand new. So there's the TL-01. Let's take this to the kitchen table for a complete strip down. Okay, so not much to go by on this, but got a Ziploc bag for all the screws. Yeah, so I've got all my tools at the ready, and without further ado, let's give this thing a complete and utter strip down. So we got there in the end. So all the important pieces right here. Got the bolts and screws in a little bag there, as well as other bits and pieces. Gears are all in that little tub. Got the propeller shaft there. Wheels, don't know what I'm doing with there. And here we have the not so important pieces. So the shocks, which are very clearly friction shocks. I'll get that Allen key out of the way. So these, definitely friction shocks. We're going to be replacing these with some oil-filled ones, but I'll get to that later. So I've got some other bits and pieces here. These are obviously for the mechanical ESC, which I'm definitely not using, because they're not as reliable. They don't fail safe and could become a bit of a liability, and also just don't like them. Fed up with mechanical ESCs. So these steering knuckles, plastic ones, but I've raced with these exact ones on the MO3L out on the track at Iconic Cup, and I'm going to be replacing these with metal ones because they've bent out of shape from impacts that it's taken. And also the other thing as well, so the servo, turns out, is Bikemo. I've never actually heard of this brand before. Probably butchered that pronunciation, but anyway. So there we have the motor. Not going to be using that. I'm going to be using a standard Core RC 21 ton, which is mandatory for this chassis at Iconic Cup. And I'll need to rescue that from something else, but I'll get to that later on in a bit. So, time to take these to the sink in the utility room and give them a good clean. Okay, so I've got all of the bits and pieces laid out in this tub in the sink, and this is the amount of muck off I have got. So let's see if I can actually spray. So I could get some good coverage. Oh, yeah. Should be enough to the rest. There is still quite a bit in there, but I'm struggling to get it all out of the... There we go. Well, I need this. Alright, so I've got as much muck off on this as I can, and it seems to be already doing its magic. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this overnight so that it gives the muck off more time to clean it. But I will be coming back to this in the morning. Okay, well, somebody has shifted that. Anyway, so the muck off does look like it has done its magic. You can see just about how murky some of it is in there. So I'm going to put that tub up there and bring in a jug of warm water. Well, what I say warm is actually quite hot. So I'm going to take one piece of parts A. But actually, I think it would be better to put this over here so that they can dry off on the draining board. So give that a good stir. Water is already looking. But yeah, this was... The battery slot was covered in dirt. And look at that. This is the reason why I love muck off, because it just cleans off so easily. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. So that's one piece done. Let's go into time-lapse mode and do the other pieces. So, considering the amount of muck off I did have left, I didn't have much left over, but all pieces of the TL-01 are all sparkling and gleaming and pretty much like new. Doesn't even look its age at all. I think also no scratches on the bottom also definitely helps with that. Now, While this is drying off, there is one thing I need to do in terms of the motor for this. So this is my 1994 Traxxas Rustler, which I restored in December last year. Got this running again. Now you may notice it hasn't got any wheels in it because I'm scouting for some new ones. I'm not going to buy Traxxas ones because Traxxas prices are just ridiculous nowadays. So that's nearly £60 for 4 tyres for this thing. But I need to look into some new ones. So if anyone actually does have any tyre suggestions that are not Traxxas for the Rustler, I will love you forever. Now, the reason I've got this out is because the motor it's currently using is the one that is mandatory for TL-01s at Iconic Cup, and that is the Core RC 21-ton motor. So I'm going to have to rescue this out of the Rustler. So this will be going into the TL-01, but I will be... Well, I need to look at the motor anyway because it keeps slipping because of a design fault on the Rustler. So I'm going to be taking this out, going to be probably putting a 20-ton motor in that is in my Baja Champ at the moment, but that will be for another video. So I'm going to take this out. Let's do this. And there you have it. So, this is a Core RC 21-ton motor, the mandatory, as I just said, yeah, well, I'm pretty much being redundant, but yeah, this is the motor that will be going in the TL-01. So, with this rescued out of this, so I will be putting a different motor in, maybe one with a slightly higher turn, but with that done, let's take this over to the kitchen table, hopefully with some dry TL-01 pieces. Okay, so I've made an interesting discovery. So these are the gears, the differential gears that the TL-01 had inside from when I bought it. The eBay seller said something about the front diff not working. Now these were both from the TL-01 that I bought, and one of these was definitely in the front. So if I just check that, that's... yeah, that's working fine, and that one works. Now, you'd think that that was the rear one, because he did say that the front was not working, but this, I'd assume... let's just say that this one was from the front. Yeah, that's strange. So both differential gears are actually perfectly fine, or they seem to be perfectly fine. I will be opening up just to grease them up and also having a look in them. But the propeller shaft did have one of these missing, but thankfully I did have we have a tray of spare radio control stuff kicking about, so I'm trying to figure out where that gear gone is underneath the tripod. So yeah, we had quite a handful of these as spares, and now that's both in the propeller shaft. So that's that. Let's check on the TL-01 pieces and see if they are ready for assembling. Well, they've dried off quite nicely. So here are all the TL-01 pieces, and this is the Core RC 21-ton that I rescued from the Traxxas Rustler so that I could use this motor inside of it, because this is the mandatory motor at events like Iconic Cup, so we've got that. The ESC for this, I've actually decided to try something different, and I found these. So I was looking at 80 amp brushed ESCs on AliExpress, which can swing either two ways. But I decided to give these a try from Wasido. I'm definitely butchering that pronunciation, but let's take a look at what we got. So this is actually, it looks similar to a Hobbywing Quick Run 80 amp ESC, but the difference between this is you don't actually need a program card to change the settings, because the only setting I do need to change is the forward, brake and reverse, and don't really need to change anything else. But the change from whether to turn the reverse off, or like depending if you want forward, reverse brake, or just forward reverse, or just forward and brake. Yeah, so this is the switch here to change that. So it does feel quite nice and robust. It seems a little bit bigger than the Quick Run 80 amp. And this is also smart because it can automatically detect what type of battery it has from the current and the voltage that it gives out. So it can tell if it's using NIMS, it can tell if it's using 2S LiPo, it can tell if it's using 3S LiPo. So could come in handy. There's the ESC. servo, not going to be using the nylon gear one that this had inside of it originally. Instead, I'm going to be using a DIY More DM996 15 kg, which isn't the fastest servo, but as soon as I run out of these, I've got one of these left, aside from this one, and the other one I'm going to be using in my Tamiya Manta Ray, which is literally just behind that chair. I'm going to be building that up, hopefully some point later on in November. So there's our servo. I think that's just about everything. Oh yeah, also got a tub of Castrol grease there. So there's all the bits and pieces, and I nearly forgot one thing, actually, hang on. Yeah, so I nearly forgot the receiver, so I'm just using a trusty FlySky GR3E, which I use in 7 other of my cars so far. I believe it's just either 6 or 7, yeah, maybe it is 7, but I believe this is the second to last receiver. There is definitely another receiver somewhere, but I have no idea where that is at the moment. I have to go scouting for it. I'm going to be pairing it with my FlySky GT3B, which is a good transmitter. It's very good. Anyway, so on that note, let's get the differential gears greased up, and let's get on with reassembling the TL-01. So something I forgot to talk about before starting this. So the plastic bearings, as you can see there, I'm getting rid of them, and I've decided to use all metal bearings instead. So I've got quite a handful of them at the ready. Let's resume and get those gears in. So, it is done. Now, there are a couple of things I haven't really talked about, but let's just take a moment just to appreciate how pretty it looks like. It doesn't even look, because I think this is a 20-year-old chassis, and it doesn't even look its age. It only looks like it's a couple of years old and hasn't had much use. It is so gleaming still. There are a couple of options I haven't really talked about. Well, there were some hop-ups I put on this that I've completely forgot to address before building this. The first one is I got rid of the friction shocks. I did mention about it at the start of the video, but they look like the same, but they are in fact Tamiya oil shocks. So the suspension on this now is much better and smoother than the friction shocks. The other thing as well is the steering knuckles I've replaced with metal ones because the plastic ones just keep bending it well out on the track. So there we have it. So let's just put it on the cradle and give it a little test run. Turn it on. Of course the reverse will have turned off well out on the track, but that sounds very healthy. Very, very happy with this. And the other thing you may have noticed that I also forgot to address was the tyres that were on this. So these are contact pre-glued touring car tyres, and I'm recycling these from previously using these on my TTO2. They don't have as good of a grip on them at the moment. I don't know how they'll be on the track with tyre additive, but very happy with that. So with the car itself pretty much done, let's move on to the body. So the body I'm going to be using is this, a 2003 Ford Focus RS Custom, which I believe was originally designed for the TL-01. But you may have also noticed I've got the first part of the box off just to make it easier, because I'd probably be here all day trying to film it and take the lid off. But there's the body itself. We've got spoiler and wing mirror there. Now there's instructions there. So this is a more up-to-date version. Now you can see it with the TTO2. However, it should go with the TTO1. TTO1 as well, but it will also go with the TL-01, which is what I'm restoring. So in there we've got our, let's put this box aside, we have got our decals and we have got our window masks. So the window masks need to come out first, and I have a horrible feeling that they are not etched, which means that I'll have to cut them up myself. Also, ignore the smoking apparatus. That's nothing to do with me. I absolutely despise smoking. I wish people in my house would stop smoking. But, oh well. So here we've got the window masks, and to do the holes, I did have it somewhere. Where is it? I had a pair of scissors and a body reamer. Oh wait, it's in my back pocket. So, there's the body reamer. And there is the curved scissors it came with. Now, I'm going to try and do a transition of this. So let's get this prepped for painting. So there we have it. So that is the Ford Focus body prepped and ready for painting. Now in terms of paint, actually I forgot to bring it. Let me just go get it. So this is the paint that I'm going to be using, and it is polycarbonate spray, but it's Core RC Colour polycarbonate spray. The reason why I decided to go with this is because when I was buying this along with the Sky RC T100 from Model Sport, as well as a few other bits, I decided to give this a try because the Tamiya paints are 100mm, whereas this is 150mm. It's roughly around the same price, but if you do compare the cost per millimetre, this is the one that offers better value, and I've decided to go with neon blue. Now, I did think about stripes, like maybe having a green stripe down there, but I don't really have, I'm not 100% sure if I do have enough paints to cover that, so I've decided not to do something a bit too fancy with this, but I may look into other things, but also decided not to do the Jackson Pollock style, because I just wanted to keep this as simple as I can, and not overdo it, if that makes sense. So, try and transition this, let's get this thing painted. And there we have it. So that's actually quite a nice blue. It's a bit darker than anticipated. But what I did end up having to do was, because I did cover the whole area and somehow didn't fill it all. It was a much lightly shaded in than others. So what I did was I had some Tamiya Brilliant Blue left over to fill in the rest. And what's weird is where the Core RC paints seem to have missed, it filled it in nicely. So this filled up spaces much nicer than this did somehow. Maybe the lack of lighting didn't help. I really should have done this maybe during where I had much more lighting, but I did get through this entire can trying to cover the whole space. Anyway, so let's get these aside. I'll throw that one out because that's run out. So let's get these window stickers off. That probably wasn't the correct motion for clicking my fingers, but anyway. So there it is. Quite a nice shade of blue, actually. Not as bright as I was intending it to be, but I'm actually very happy with it. You kind of see where it just about missed there, and maybe a bit on the back there, but hopefully with the decals on, it won't be that notable. Speaking of which, here are the decals. Now, these are not etched, and that's rather annoying, because I do really wish that Tamiya would start etching their stickers. But, well, here we are. So, hopefully this won't take too long. Let's get these decals on. Well, that didn't take as long as I anticipated, but got there in the end. As much as I would have liked to have had the stickers etched out, yeah, very happy with this. Anyway, so with this pretty much done, I might put some additional details on there at a later stage. But the only decals I actually didn't use was this switch marking, because I've got the opposite version on there, and also these pins, because I would just spend ages going around these, and you know, this has taken as long as it has done already, so I just decided it's just a little detail, which I don't think is going to be that much notice anyway. So put that aside and bring in the TL-01. So time to see how this looks on the chassis. Probably made a mess of that transition there, but there it is. Voila! Pretty amazed with that. It could do with a bit more decals. Looks a bit bare in some places, but I'll definitely liven this up with a few stickers. Probably a Hobby Wing there, one at the front. So it looks quite. It looks a bit quite funny at the front when you look at it underneath, because of the bumpers. Now, on the back, I guess, is supposedly fine, but I might want to see if there's any front foam bumper options for this, because there is so much space to play with at the front, and could cause a bit of problems when racing. The other thing I think I may as well point out, in case somebody has noticed it, the camera isn't quite doing it justice, but the tracking is quite off. So what I might need to get to do is, I might need to get some adjustable arms, and replacing these ones, because these ones obviously aren't adjustable, whereas with adjustable ones we'll be able to correct the tracking a lot better. But until then, that is pretty much the car done. Well, I will be trimming these body posts off at some point, but I really want to test drive this thing. Okay, so it is very cold at the moment, so hopefully this doesn't end up killing the battery quickly. But I brought it along here to this industrial estate, which I have driven and tested a few cars prior to this, and as you can see there, apparently 20's plenty. It nearly rhymes, but it does near rhyme. And I'll applaud anyone who actually gets that reference. So, here I am testing out the TL-01 for the first time. I tested it out for a little bit at home, but as you can see on there, I've got the HPI Plasma lipo pack in there, which perfectly fits in there, so that was a breeze getting it in there. But I did not bring the capacity checker with me though, that's the thing, so I won't be able to measure how much battery I've got left, but this is fully charged, and I have got it on the lipo setting, thankfully. But let's not dawdle on anymore, because I think my camera battery hasn't got much juice left in it. Let's switch this thing on and take it for a test drive. Okay, so without further ado, let's go. Yeah, these contact tyres have absolutely no grip whatsoever. Oh, pothole. So it's got kick, just barely any grip, but it works. There's a car coming, I'll just get that out of the way.
Done this shit.
Yeah, so while driving this back, trying to find a quiet road to send this along, I drove into a bush a couple of times because of how much of a lack of grip I've got on these tyres. And there it goes again. Oh well. Okay, so I'm on that same stretch of road that I've sent the M03L. I'll have to be a bit cautious with the amount of cars going past. But yeah, if it weren't for how not so grippy these tyres were, I think there's a car coming out of that junction. But these tyres, I've got absolutely no grip on them whatsoever. And if I had, this would have drove very nicely. It handles nicely in general, but just think about those tyres. Oh. The leaf stuck on the back of that, I'll have to take care of that. Okay, just for the sake of it, I'm not going to be sending it round anymore, so let's stop right there and wrap up in the garage. Okay, so after that test run, I'm left with 62% charge on the battery, which is actually pretty decent for a 3200 mAh pack. Anyway, that was my restoration of a Tamiya TL-01. Had it not been for the worn tyres, because this thing desperately needs some new ones, but I'll definitely be getting some if I do race this at the Iconic Cup in the future. I am going to give the M03L another run there, because it didn't really have the chance to show off its full potential due to something that I had done. That being not putting O-rings in between the joint cup and the drive shaft. So that was causing the drive shaft to pop out. But if there is anywhere, I think West Wilts do TT-01Es, so maybe I could race this there, as they do use Core RC 21-ton motors as well. Although I could enter two different classes, but having two cars, for me, that's going to be a bit of a mistake, given that I want to film the races, as well as check out the races in general. So having two cars running at a racing event for me is going to be a bit of a mistake. Anyway, on that note, that's all I pretty much have to say for this, really. But yeah, again, without these, if it had been some newer tyres and more sort of asphalt in mind, this would have definitely driven very nicely, because I've got a sense of how it does drive, and that's around the industrial state. Was actually the first time I've sent this at full power. But overall, really happy with things. Really happy with this thing, so can't wait to start racing with it in the future. I will definitely be racing it at Iconic Cup in the future, but I want to, again, the M03L's got a bit of a redemption going on, so this will be saved for maybe later on in 2025. Anyway, on that note, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Not sure what I'm going to have for next week's video, but whatever it may be, and if there is a next week, I'll see you then.